So you want to get into videography, you watch a bunch of cinematic YouTube tutorials, and you go out, buy a nice camera that gives you 4K, 6K, a clean image, good high ISO performance, everything is smooth, everything is sharp. A couple weeks later, you sit down to watch a movie, and what's this? There's grain, there's noise, halation, what's that? The movie doesn't seem to be following the color grading principles you were taught on YouTube, and then you realize it's film. So now you need to find a way to ruin your nice, smooth, clean 4K, 6K footage and make it look more like film. And I have the right tool for you. It's called Dehancer. Dehancer is a color grading plugin made for Davinci Resolve, Premiere Pro, and my program of choice, Final Cut Pro. Before we jump into all the color grading tools and film simulations there are with Dehancer, I want to show you my favorite tool that Dehancer offers, which is the bloom tool. This is something that basically emulates what a promised filter would do, so it gives you like a blooming effect around the highlights. And I love this because I don't have to use promised filters anymore. I can just chuck this preset on and it will give me the same effect, and I can fine tune it to how strong or how weak I want it compared to an actual filter which is set, and that's the strength you get. Let's go into the program so I can show you how it looks. Okay, so here we have our clip. It's from an old video and it's basically just a push in with the gimbal with my X-T3 and I believe the kit lens, the 18-55. I've already put Dehancer onto my clip and I've turned everything off. When I turn it on, you can see it blooms all of the highlight, everything that's white, the same as a promised would do. But as soon as you put it on, you can see that it's probably kind of unrealistic, depends on the footage you're putting it on. Generally, I want to make it a bit more subtle and just change it up a bit. So in here, we have a couple of options. But generally with Dehancer, I think it gives you a bit too much control. I would be much happier just to get a couple buttons saying 1 stop, half a stop, quarter stop, and 8 stop, the same as the promised filters go. But anyways, you have to jump into the sliders and just get used to what the sliders do, or just play around until your shot looks kind of good. And that's basically what I'm doing here. Okay, so this is probably where I would leave it. So this is the clip with the bloom option turned on, and this is the clip without the bloom option on. What? Before we jump into the rest of the tools that Dehancer offers, here's a video I color graded with Dehancer. It was shot on my X-T3, the Sigma 18-50, and a couple shot on the 7 Artisans 3512. Now let's jump into all the tools that Dehancer gives you. So generally, when you put Dehancer onto a clip, it will default to something like this. So it just gives you the Kodak Vision 250D film simulation. It puts a bunch of noise on it. It does the expand option, which I don't really understand what it does. And it just turns on a bunch of different things. Now maybe this works right away for your footage. For me, it never has worked yet, so generally I have to change it. Whenever you change your settings, you can save it as a specific preset if you want to maybe reuse it on a different video or try it out. Generally, for me, whenever I'm happy with an edit I've done, I would save it just so I can try it out on something else. Maybe I shoot something that's similar, maybe with just a couple small adjustments. It's a better option than starting from the beginning every time. Also, generally I don't like to put Dehancer straight onto the clip. Usually I put an adjustment layer above the whole timeline and then place Dehancer onto that. The various clips may be a bit different and I want to be able to fine-tune each clip to work with my main color grade that I've made in Dehancer. So let's put my both preset onto these two clips. So this is the same preset I've used when editing the both video. And here you can see it doesn't look as it did in the video. Just because the preset does not make a lot of exposure adjustments, which I like to do with the Final Cut tools, because I like the color wheels and the color curves much better than just the sliders in Dehancer. So for this clip I would probably just turn down the global adjustments. Also I like to have my scopes on. I would probably make it much warmer and then play a bit more with the highlights, shadows and midtones. I like it somewhere around here. I'm not going too much into details with editing this. So now that the clips look somewhat good, let's go back into Dehancer and just see what everything does. So the first thing you can see is the input option. I leave this at Rec 709 just because I don't shoot log. I usually shoot in a modified classic chrome film emulation. So I would leave this at Rec 709. If I was shooting F-Log, I would probably change it. You can go here to choose camera. You can find the camera system you're using. For Fujifilm, it just gives me the option for the X-H2S and X-T3, which are the cameras I have. I would choose X-T3 and then I would choose F-Log. You can see it messes everything up. So we'll go back to the Rec 709. The second thing it offers is the film emulation. It has, I think, 64, 65 different film stocks. So these are all made to replicate a specific film. For this project I used Kodak Vision 3. Generally I stick to the Kodak Visions because it's the best ones and the easiest one to work with, at least for me. But it also has Portra, it has Kodachrome, Kodak Ektar, all films that you will probably be used to if you shot any film. Kodak Vision is a specific film stock made for video, so it's not a photography film stock, even though you can find some photography rolls, but generally it's a film stock made for video. And you also get the push-pull slider underneath, which kind of changes how your film looks. And generally, I don't know, you can just play around with it. I don't know if there's a specific explanation of what it does, but generally whenever I see a slider, I just play around with it and then try to figure out what it does and where I want it to be. Here you have a film developer option, which I never really touch. Then film compression, which adds some kind of film compression, but you can see that without it, my clip looks really flat. With it on and these adjustments made, it gives a much more dynamic look. Generally, I don't know what any of this means. So as I said, I just play with the sliders and see what I can do. Also, it gives you a film print option. So this gives you a bunch of different print paper options that give you a different look. Generally, I would leave it at linear and then just adjust it on my own. Something I like is the tonal contrast, which gives you kind of a different type of contrast than maybe pulling the shadows, pushing the highlights, and it's quite interesting. I haven't really used it on this project, but I've used it on different ones, and if you apply it slightly, it can do quite a lot. Generally, with all of the tools in Dehancer, I would use them really sparingly because if you go hard with them, it will definitely ruin or de-enhance your footage, so use them really sparingly to get a good look. Here's a tool that I really like, which is the color density tool, and I love this because it kind of, I would say, adds saturation without adding saturation, just makes the colors dense, as it says. It won't do, even if you push it all the way, it won't do what a saturation slider would do, where it would just make everything just break. So it basically fills the color and makes it look much stronger but not in a oversaturated way, which is something I honestly haven't seen anywhere else, not in photo editing and not in video editing, and it's probably my second favorite thing. It does a lot, especially for skin tones. Here we have the color head, which is your general color adjustments, and as I said, I like to do this in the color wheels that Final Cut Pro offers, so I don't really mess with this, but it gives you like different options to tone the shadows, the highlights, the mid-tones. It gives you a magenta green slider, yellow blue, cyan red. It gives you all the basic options to color grade your footage. And then there is film grain. If you didn't have Dehancer, you probably just add film grain as a clip on top of your clip and then just change the blend mode. But this applies the film grain to the whole clip in the same way, while Dehancer gives you a bunch of different options and different ways to apply film grain and to make it look more realistic. So you can change the size of the grain, you can change the amount. Let me zoom in so we can see this better. Yeah, so you can change the size of the grain, you can change the amount, you can like ruin the shot completely. It gives you a slider that's called film resolution. So in film you can see that not everything is really sharp. Usually it's kind of soft. The edges on film are not like clean edges. They're kind of soft but still look good. I don't know how to explain it, but this is basically what film resolution does. So with 4K footage, especially out of my X-T3, I wouldn't go too low on this slider. At 100% it keeps the same resolution of your camera. Maybe at 85 it makes it a bit softer, which I kind of like. I wouldn't go too much down with it because it just makes your footage look muddy, but maybe between like 50 and 80, 85 is a good mix. And then you can choose if you want more grain in the shadows, in the midtones, or in the highlights, which also there's not really a way of doing this in the standard way of just dropping a grain clip on top of your clip. And then it gives you an option to add or remove chroma noise, which is a color noise, I believe. And I generally don't like that, so I just leave it at 0. It also gives you different options for noise types, positive or negative film, and analog or digital, which says experimental. I don't know if that's something they're still working on, but generally I would leave it on negative and analog. So you can see this is with noise and this is without. Here we are punched into 100%, so the full clip would look something like this. And yeah, I think the noise in Dehancer really looks much better than any other way of adding noise to your footage. And now the last two tools I usually use are halation and bloom. Bloom we already went over. Halation is similar to chromatic aberration, but chromatic aberration is something that happens in the lens of your camera. It's like the purple edges of your footage, and it usually doesn't really look good. Halation is like a red edge around the highlights, and usually it's quite pleasing to the eyes. So again, let's punch into the clip to see if we can see some halation on this clip. Yeah, you can see it here around the fishing pole. So when I turn halation on and off, you can see it appearing and disappearing on the fishing rod, and it does change the look of the clip a lot, and in my opinion is a welcome addition to the clip. It gives the footage a bit more character and it gives it more of that authentic film look. I haven't seen anything else that can mimic halation this well on a digital clip, so I believe Dehancer as well is a great option for this. When it comes to pricing, Dehancer is definitely not cheap. A lifetime subscription of what I have shown you, which is Dehancer Pro, is $449 US, which is quite a lot, but it's something that you would buy now and then just have forever. You can also buy Dehancer Lite, which doesn't have halation and a few other options, but it has everything else that's important. It has the grain, it has the bloom, so it's still a good option, and it's less than half the price. It's $200, $199. Or if you only want specific things, like let's say you only want the grain, or you only want the bloom option or the halation, you can buy each of them for $100 for a lifetime subscription. If you want to get 10% off your purchase, you can just use code PERHA22. It will give you a 10% discount and it will give me a 10% kickback. Before closing off this video, I also wanted to show you the Dehancer mobile app, which has all the film emulations and all the tools I have shown you in this video. It can help you easily and quickly transform any photos and videos directly on your phone. Remember to use code PERHAT22 to get 10% off anything on the Dehancer website. Thanks for watching, consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video.